younger phase of open data in Ghent because I reached my expiry date to talk about open data. So in the first half of the talk that I'm doing, I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of open data and what it taught us as an organization, how we should treat our data, and what role of open data is in that learning process. And then Johan is going to continue to talk to say a little bit about what we're doing with open data today. So, yeah, data in local government. I was very happy with the examples you were giving, that data is being used for processes as a side result or as the chief goal of a process, but the usefulness of the data lies also outside that specific process. People working in companies will realize this. Multiply this by 100 when you're working for local government, because we're responsible for everything at the same time. And the Ghent Fest should be fun and clean and safe, but at the meantime, if you are becoming a father or a mother, the registry should still be available and so on. And we're also responsible for the cleanliness, and all this with a quite limited budget. So insights are very valuable to make this more efficient and to see the correlations. If we do this here, it will have an effect later on. But also for policy purposes, because one of the interesting evolutions we saw that people, regardless if they're elected or not, find a lot of room in the press on social media to say whatever they want if it's being corroborated by facts, yes or no. We notice that here on the local level, we say, okay, we need to be data driven, it needs to be based in fact. So we produce a lot of data, like maps. That's not as straightforward as you might imagine, because even the boundaries of Ghent are sometimes changing a little bit, and it's really important that we know to the millimeter where that boundary is for legal purposes and so on. We have a lot of registries, addresses, buildings, and so on and so on. Permits, you're allowed to use the public domain for a weekend when you want to give a party or a concert or whatever. Demographics, we keep track who's born, who's moving, who's dying, and this is really important to know. Where are the fluctuations? Are people moving inside of the city? Are they moving outside? Why? Because we have over, I think, 60,000 movements each year. And the most part of it is inside of Ghent, so there's a lot of movement. Events, news, bylaws. Bylaws like the city council is saying, okay, if your organization so-and-so and you're working for that and that target group, you can get a certain amount of money. This is all being translated into data. This is used for policy making, operational decisions, analysis, and communication. For instance, the movements. We are analyzing this to understand why people are moving outside of Ghent, because sometimes it's being said quite easily, yeah, it's rich families with young kids who are moving away from Ghent. Maybe, we don't know. So we started looking at this, and then we noticed that the data we have only takes us so far. What we can gather from the registries is that, yes, indeed, there are quite a substantial part of families moving away. And we know where they are moving to because we make use of the national registry. We know people are disappearing here and they're reappearing in the registry of Melle, Evergem, and so on and so on. So yeah, they're moving to the outskirts, but we have no idea if these are the richer families, yes or no. So we're talking to the Bureau of Statistics, and we can find some way. Basically, families are moving away. But there are more families being formed inside of Ghent than families going outside. And we call this the staircase model. people are coming here as students, they're not in the registries. Once they finished their education, they are staying in Ghent separately, and they already have a boyfriend, girlfriend, well, or whatever, and then they form a family. But we don't know that movement. We don't know how much families. So we are still working under the assumption that there are more families being formed in Ghent than families going outside. Which means if you are planning a housing policy, you shouldn't think that we are okay with building less family residences. And that's what data-driven policy making is. Okay, data and policy. Are you aware that politicians are concerned about data? Have you ever heard a political statement or a tweet on data by a politician? Not so much. Sometimes in a speech, depending on the event. Huh? But it is there. Huh? Open data is in the coalition agreement for the third time already. So, the City Council of Ghent says open data is important, we are going to keep doing this. I have to be honest, all the political parties, they look at what's been going on and they still believe that open data is important, huh? Because it sounds cool and there's some good results. The new thing is that data-driven besturen, data-driven management, is also in the coalition agreement. So it means that the parties who are now part of the majority in the city council believe that we need to do more with data. And I'm very happy that they say data-driven besturen, data-gedreven bestuur, and not data-driven decision-making. Because that should rely a lot on algorithms which are not very transparent, but they are thinking, okay, we need to be fact-based, and these facts need to be talked about, and it's based on that discussion, that dialogue, that we will make informed decisions. And we cannot underestimate the value of the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation on a European level, which is a lot about privacy. That was the first time that a lot of policymakers start. Any other questions? Suggestions? Yeah.
I'm interested in how the council considers risk with these data sets. So, for example, I was working with Ministry of Education in New Zealand, and they were very conscious about releasing any ethnic information with how well a school is doing academically, because they didn't want people to draw those sort of correlations. So I'm just wondering how you guys deal with that kind of stuff.
Well, it's an interesting question. One of the first examples on open data was in New York, and that despite efforts for a long time to raise the quality of hygiene in the restaurants, because you got 3 labels ABC, and it took a long while and a lot of controls. But once they started publishing this as open data, it evolved in a fast rate. It was incredible. These are the success stories. On the other hand, there's an example of India. It was one of the states there where they published the proprietary structure of the lands. So you could also see which lands were up for grabs. And 1 week later, all the bigger companies controlled that land. So you're never sure, but there's a conscious choice that has been made by the former city council. We have some statistics which is being managed by the police on security, safety, crime, and there was a decision. We will publish this in a yearly report, but not on a neighborhood level. It will just be for the whole territory. The city of Antwerp, which has a different kind of mayor than Ghent, one of the first sets they were publishing was the crime on a very local level. So it's never neutral.
You could see where the grenades were being dropped, right? They didn't like that part, they did like to open the other. Right?
So it's, but I think the fact that politicians are aware and they are talking about this, why should or shouldn't we? That's already a big step forward. I think there's a bigger risk and unintended consequences when you publish 3, 4, 5, 6 data sets which are pseudonymized, anonymized, or whatever, but by combining, you start targeting individuals or smaller groups. But that's insights that all of us are trying to be aware of. But the other part is that when you talk about risk, there's also a new stream in the management. It's about risk aversion and risk management that you need to be aware of what can go wrong. And the awareness of the critical data sets for your operational purposes is also entering that way into the management stream. So we also need to be aware which data should be there all the time and available. So it's on both ends.
Yeah, I think of course we have more safety measures built in. GDPR, of course, it's a threat for personal data. Basically, standard gets offline and it doesn't even get online in the first instance. So, yeah, I'm sitting next to my DPO most of the time for the city. So, when I want to open some data, he's like, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that." So I don't do that because he has a point, of course.
But I think there that the GDPR and open data, they are strong partners, because the stronger and the clearer GDPR issues are, the more opportunity that there is for open data and the other way around. So. Any other questions?
When is Apps for Ghent next year?
It's 17th.
Yeah, we try to do this every year, the third Saturday of March.
Communication will start very short. Yeah, next month or so. You're very welcome. Join.
Interesting topic.
Yeah. Mobility is. Well, I think also it's a bit the sensitivity part. Mobility in Ghent is also quite sensitive. It was quite sensitive, maybe. So I think now is the right time. 2 years after the new circulation plan, it's the right time to finally do some mobility. But it's true that right after the mobility plan was introduced, we're not allowed, or it was just very hard for us to do mobility at that moment. Yeah. Just felt it like it's not the right time to do mobility hacking.
Yeah. The first government-owned real-time data set that was published as open data was the real-time parking data of the city of Ghent of the underground parking garages. But it took a while before we reached it, and we organized a data dive. And you saw the people of the mobility department being a little bit afraid to talk about it, because normally when you go from the mobility department and you start talking to people in the neighborhood, it's a shitstorm, excuse my English, because nobody's happy, because they cannot park their car, or there are too much cars, there's not enough cars, the bikes are dangerous, whatever. People are never happy. So when we invited them, okay, we will publish those data sets because maybe an app will come, because at that time we were still thinking apps, not insights, which is more what we're striving for now. And the room in the data dive, there were like 15 people. They came from Wallonia to listen what we were trying to achieve. And so the people from the mobility department, they said, okay, these are our policy goals. We want the city to be reachable and sustainable and so on and so on. And then they started talking about the underground parking garages and the system and the data model and so on. And then the questions started coming. And it took about 10 minutes, and then you physically saw our colleagues from the mobility department relaxing and leaving their very defensive stance, because people were thinking with them how to make the data better, how to make the data more useful. And at one point, and for me that was a critical moment to see, okay, you can create a good dialogue based on data and what you can do with it. And since then, one of our strongest believers in open data are the people from the mobility department. Because one of their issues was, okay, if we publish the data and the capacity, the open capacity, we fear that platforms like TomTom and so on, they will go the shortest way and the smallest streets and so on, and that's not what we want. And they also put this to the group of technical people who was there who wanted to reuse the data, and then they said, yeah, but publish the waypoints, how to reach the data together with that real-time data set. And then we start thinking, okay, you can also steer towards your policy goals in a data publication way. Now that was very useful. So, fun.
Yeah, it's true. Most data sets in our open data portal are mobility related. So.
Anything else? Please take a look at our data portal. If you have any comments, don't hesitate. So we're not in a defensive stance anymore. We're very open for constructive feedback because we know that this portal is it's up for improvement. So we hope that we will have major overhaul in the coming years. So thank you for your attention and looking forward to your feedback.